More than meets the eye. Chapter 4. As technology advanced, the scientists from HMI were able to use an incredibly sensitive device called a squid magnometer, a superconducting quantum interference device. It's designed to detect very subtle magnetic fields, even those as faint as the ones produced by the human body. When scientists used the squid to study the heart, they discovered that the heart produces the strongest magnetic field in the body, 5,000 times greater in strength than the field produced by the brain. The heart's magnetic field, which is the strongest rhythmic field produced by the human body, not only envelops every cell of the body, but also extends out in all directions into the space around us. The heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body by sensitive magnetometers. Research conducted at HMI suggests the heart's electromagnetic field is an important carrier of information. And this is the official depiction of the magnetic field produced by the heart by the HeartMath Institute. In addition to all the nervous and biochemical systems to exchange information, the heart's electromagnetic field also represents a form of communication within the entire body. This was demonstrated by a series of experiments performed by Gary Schwartz and his colleagues. In the experiments, they found inexplicable communications between the heart and the brain that made no sense whatsoever via the classic neurological or other established communication pathways, chemical for example. This discovery established the fact that energetic interaction between the heart and the brain exists through electromagnetic fields. This shouldn't be too surprising because there are studies proving that the electromagnetic field communication is the most effective way of communicating. We know that living organisms must receive and interpret environmental signals in order to stay alive. So the survival is directly related to the speed and the efficiency of the signal transfer. A study by a biophysicist, McClare, calculated and compared the efficiency of information transfer between energy signals and chemical signals in biological systems. His research, Resonance in Bioenergetics, revealed that energetic signaling mechanisms such as the electromagnetic frequencies are 100 times more efficient in relaying environmental information than physical signals such as hormones, neurotransmitters, growth factors, and so on. The speed of electromagnetic energy signals is it's almost 300,000 kilometers per second, not hour, per second, while the speed of a diffusible chemical is considered less than 1 centimeter per second. The difference is incomparable. Energy signals are much more efficient and infinitely faster than physical chemical signaling. Research from the HeartMath Institute and other studies suggest that the electromagnetic field directly influences the brain's state. The amplitude of energy produced by the heart increases the level of energy in the brain, in some cases more than 50 to 300 times the normal level. What this means is, once the heart center is activated through elevated emotions, it acts as an amplifier to jumpstart the brain, enhance its activity, and create balance, order, and coherence throughout the entire body. This discovery of the electromagnetic field generated by the heart opened the door to understanding that the heart isn't just a pump for blood. It's a source of energy that radiates outwards. And here's where it gets even more interesting. They noticed that the heart's magnetic field changes with our emotions. Just like the focused beat of a drum that produces a measurable sound wave, the stronger the coherent rhythm of the heart, the more expanded your field becomes. That means the stronger the elevated feelings of love, joy, and gratitude as an example, the stronger the electromagnetic field. On the other hand, when we're stressed or frustrated, the heart's rhythm gets chaotic, and the field reflects that disordered state. When you activate the heart by calling up elevated emotions, you're not only broadcasting that energy to every cell, you're also radiating those feelings out into space. And this is where heart moves beyond biology and into physics. The electromagnetic field generated by the heart can influence people around you. This provides a credible explanation for the fact that when someone walks into a room, you can feel or sense that individual's mood or emotional state independent of their body language. We have all felt another person's energy and intent when they were angry or very frustrated. We felt it because they were emitting a strong signal of energy that carried a specific information. This is why when you walk into a room feeling genuinely happy or peaceful, others pick up on that energy, often without even realizing it. The same is true of a very sexual person, a person who is suffering, or a person who has a calm, loving energy. All those energies are sensed and felt. The electromagnetic field is energy. All energy is frequency, and all frequency carries information. Based on our personal thoughts and feelings, we're always sending and receiving information. To understand this a little bit better, let's take a look at some basics of quantum physics. Albert Einstein, everything in life is vibration. Nikola Tesla, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The Kabbalion, the esoteric book with laws of nature and existence, one of the, I believe, 7 principles. One principle is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Physicists found that atoms, the building blocks of everything in the physical universe, are made up of a nucleus surrounded by a large field containing one or more electrons. This field is so large in comparison with the tiny electrons that it appears to be 99.9% empty space. To put it into perspective, if an atom were expanded to the size of a large sports stadium, the nucleus would be the size of a small marble in the middle of the field, while the rest of the stadium would represent the atom's empty space. In short, atoms, and by extension everything in existence, is mostly empty space. This is a depiction of how an atom could look like, with a slight difference to the usual way that an atom is represented in biology and chemistry. But even this doesn't do it justice, because the empty space should be much larger than here. It's just an idea. And the empty space is not actually empty. It's full of movement and energy, because atoms are in constant motion. The electrons move around the nucleus, creating waves of energy, and everything inside the atom vibrates. Each atom is unique because the distribution of its negative and positive charges, coupled with its spin rate, generates a specific vibration or a frequency pattern. Something done or shown by Oshman in 2000. This is more like how I imagine it to be. Naturally, none of this stuff really does the structure of an atom justice. It's a cool way to represent this idea. So every atom, every particle is moving, vibrating at its own frequency. And frequency is measured by the number of oscillations or cycles of an electromagnetic wave per second, and it's expressed in hertz. This is not really important for you to understand, but what is important to understand is that it is the vibration or the constant energy that makes things real and gives them their unique qualities. Real in terms of us being able to perceive it, and as you will see, there's a lot of stuff that we can't even perceive. Physicists came to the conclusion that the concept of matter is an illusion, for they recognize that everything in the universe is made out of energy. Albert Einstein explained this by saying, "Concerning matter, we have all been wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter." Even matter and physical objects like a chair or a rock are vibrating. It's just that the vibrations are much slower and denser, which gives the impression of solidity. Not just a rock or a chair, but our planet is also essentially a vibration. And it's vibrating at a very specific frequency. The frequency is called the Schumann frequency. That's the Earth's natural electromagnetic environment, which operates within the extremely low frequency range with a fundamental frequency of 7.83 Hertz. And this resonance is generated by lightning strikes, and it's acting as a global electromagnetic signal in a beautifully way explained, representing the planet's heartbeat. Interestingly, this frequency aligns with the human brain's theta waves. Like we said, theta waves is connected with meditation, deep relaxation, even restoration. And this overlap shows a potential interaction between the Earth's electromagnetic field and human consciousness, specifically how it might influence or synchronize brainwave activity. There is a cool study related to the effects of the Schumann resonance on human health that was conducted by Dr. Wolfgang Ludwig, a German physicist and researcher in biophysics. Dr. Ludwig's studies involved observing individuals in environments where natural exposure to the Schumann resonance was blocked, such as in sealed, electromagnetically shielded rooms. These rooms are called Faraday cages, and they filter out external electromagnetic fields, including the Schumann resonance frequencies. What happened is incredibly interesting. The doctor found that some individuals in the shielded environment began experiencing symptoms of unease, including headaches, fatigue, and general discomfort. When artificial sources of the Schumann resonance frequencies were reintroduced into the shielded environment, the subjects reported significant relief from these symptoms, often experiencing rapid improvement in mood, alertness, and energy levels. Ludwig hypothesized that the absence of Schumann resonance disrupted the body's natural rhythms and processes, possibly affecting circadian rhythms, stress response, and the overall physiological balance. The Schumann frequency permeates the entire atmosphere. As long as we're on or near the surface of the Earth, we're exposed to it. However, inside buildings and surrounded by dense concrete and steel, we may experience weaker exposure to the natural electromagnetic fields due to the interference and shielding that comes from man-made materials. It can also be diluted by artificial electromagnetic fields, EMFs, that are generated by technology such as Wi-Fi, cell phones, and other devices. Naturally, how can we increase our exposure to the Schumann frequency? Logically, by spending more time in nature, and this helps to recalibrate the body's natural resonance with Earth's field, which is also why there's so many fans of the concept grounding and walking barefoot on Earth's surface and stuff like that. So everything in our known universe, although it may appear to be solid, is actually 99.9% energy or information. If everything is vibrating and 99.9% energy, that means that there's no real separation and that everything in existence is interconnected in a unified field of energy. This is just going by the logics of everything. It seems that the universe is one indivisible, dynamic whole in which energy and matter are so deeply entangled that it's impossible to consider them as independent elements. A quote by Richard Conn Henry: The universe is immaterial, mental and spiritual. Live and enjoy. What this comes down to is that our brain is essentially a frequency analyzer. It picks up a range of frequencies through the senses and tries to make sense of it. Very often we are misled and objective reality isn't what it seems. This is super interesting, and I actually tried it myself. You can watch the video again, and just as an experiment, instead of thinking that is embarrassing at the beginning, just start by thinking you're gonna hear Bart Simpson bouncing, and it's gonna come out Bart Simpson bouncing every time. So if you ignore the stuff that's on the screen, it's gonna sound what you want it to sound like, which is crazy when you think about it. There's also the example with the black and blue dress. That's some people perceive a dress as black and blue, and some people perceive it as gold and white. I'm one of the guys that perceives it as gold and white, and I can't imagine how how people are seeing it as black and blue. So there's a lot of people fighting in comments of what the dress is actually, what the color of the dress is. Okay, let's take a look at light. The entire light spectrum contains all electromagnetic frequencies that we know of. In other words, all electromagnetic frequencies that we know to exist belong to the light spectrum. And the visible light spectrum makes up less than 1%. The stuff that we can perceive is less than 1% of everything that exists. This is the example, and you can see, like in the rainbow colored section in the middle, that's the 1% that we can see, the visible light and the colors that belong to it. Everything else we can't see. Radio waves, you can't see them, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays. You can't actually perceive it, but you know it's real because we use X-rays to, like when we have an injury or when we go to the hospital, we use radio waves to listen to music. So it exists, but we just don't see it. This is the example that we had, like in hospitals with CAT scans, MRIs, positron emission topography, whatever that is. PET scans. And through them we can detect disease non-invasively. Now, even though we can't see them, our thoughts and our emotions have a unique frequency. Thoughts and emotions have a subtle frequency which represents the less physical and more ethereal aspects of reality. In the literal sense, thoughts are a flow of electrical signals. You can think of emotion as energy with a unique vibrational signature as well. We already said emotions are energy in motion, meaning emotion creates measurable and significant changes in our body and energy. And this concept goes so far that even an emotions frequency chart was created. And this was done by David R. Hawkins and his map of consciousness, which ranks emotions on a scale in terms of energy or vibrational state. Now, I'm confident that this map of consciousness and the frequency of different emotions is not scientifically measured and then displayed. I believe this is more like in service of getting the idea and our understanding the concept that our emotions also have a specific energy. And we said that the faster the frequency, more energy, and that's why when we feel joy, gratitude, enthusiasm, optimism, hope, like positive emotions. That's why we feel like we have more energy. They have an expansive, energizing effect on us. On the other side of the spectrum, if you're feeling frustrated, anxious, like filled with guilt or despair, we often feel stuck. We can feel our energy draining. We are feeling like something is pulling us down. And that's why we can say that these emotions resonate at lower frequencies. Now, to get to a specific point, we said positive emotions activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Just to rephrase it, high frequency emotions activate the parasympathetic nervous system, while low frequency emotions connected with stress activate the sympathetic nervous system. Studies have investigated how the heart's electromagnetic field might interact with other people's fields. Different emotions carry different levels of conscious intent and energy. The information carried on a higher frequency emotions can be an intention that influences the heart of another person at a different location by moving it into coherence and balance. We're going to take a look at some specific examples of this, because there is evidence that a group of people sitting in a room together can influence others sitting at a distance in the same room to go into heart coherence at the exact same time. This can be seen in a heart math study in which 40 participants were divided into groups of 4 around 10 card tables. While the heart rhythms of all 4 participants at the table were being measured, only 3 people were trained to raise their emotions through heart coherence techniques. When the 3 trained participants raised their energy and sent positive feelings to the untrained participant, that person also went into higher states of coherence. The authors of the study concluded evidence of heart-to-heart synchronization across subjects were found, which lends credence to the possibility of heart-to-heart biocommunications. Essentially, it means that your internal state and that your electromagnetic field is influencing others in ways that we can perceive. The interaction between 2 human beings, such as the consultation between a patient and a doctor, or a discussion between friends, is a very sophisticated dance that involves many subtle factors. Most people tend to think of communication solely in terms of overt signal expressed through facial movements, voice qualities, gestures, and body movements. However, evidence now supports the perspective that a subtle yet influential electromagnetic or energetic communication system operates just below our conscious level of awareness. Using signal averaging techniques, researchers at HeartMath Institute were able to detect synchronization between a mother's brainwaves and her baby's heartbeats. The pair were not in physical contact, but when the mother focused her attention on the baby, her brainwaves synchronized to the baby's heartbeats. And you can see the graph. The red one is the baby's heart reading, and the blue one is the mom's EEG brainwave pattern. Our electromagnetic signal is not only picked up by people around us, it's also detected by animals. A study by HeartMath Institute found that a type of heart rhythm synchronization can occur in interactions between people and their pets. There's an experiment with heart rhythms of Josh and his dog Mabel. This was recorded in a lab with 2 Holter recorders. Holter recorders are usually even used like medicinally for people that have blood pressure issues. One was fitted on Mabel and the other one on Josh. So Josh enters the room and sits down and begins to consciously radiate feelings of love toward his pet Mabel. There was no physical contact and he did not make any attempts to get the dog's attention. This is what happens. There are three main stages to this experiment. While they're in separate rooms, you can see like from 0 to 2 minutes, you can see the heart incoherence in both the dog and the boy. The boy is in the lower section. And when Josh enters the room and starts to consciously feel love for his pet, you can see he enters the state of coherence, and essentially the dog reflects the state of heart coherence as well. And as soon as the boy stops consciously loving his pet and moves back into a state of heart incoherence, or like the regular state, the dog does that as well, and even becomes more excited because the dog Mabel wants the boy to stay. But it's beautiful to think about like the hearts of the boy and the dog like becoming synchronized. Another example can be found in a collaborative study with Ellen, a PhD who consciously shifted into a coherent state while with her horse, Tonopah. neither neither touching nor petting it. When she shifted into a coherent state, the horse's heart rhythm pattern also shifted to a more ordered pattern. And you can see like between the green, in the green stage, between 3 and almost 7 minutes, you can see Ellen on the top and her horse with his name in the lower part. And like when you compare it to like before and after, the state of heart coherence is evident in both Ellen and her pet horse. You can think of your thoughts, which make up your intention, as the electrical charge that you're sending out into the unified field of energy. By thinking of thoughts as electric, we're essentially saying that thoughts are directional, like electric currents guiding and organizing our focus and intent. If this sounds weird, take a look at a recent human testing done by Neuralink. Neuralink is actually funded or created by Elon Musk, if I'm not mistaken. And they developed a brain-computer interface, a BCI, that amplifies the electrical impulses of brain activity enough to interact with computers, devices, and even play video games. And we'll take a look at a short segment at what they were able to achieve.
My name's Nolan Arbaugh. I'm 29 years old. About 8 years ago, I was in kind of a freak diving accident and dislocated my C4, C5, so I'm a complete quadriplegic. So I'm paralyzed from below the shoulders. I love playing chess, and so this is one of the things that y'all have enabled me to do, something that I wasn't able to really do much the last few years, especially not like this. I had to use like a mouse stick and stuff, but now it's all being done with my brain. If y'all can see the cursor moving around the screen, that's all me, y'all. It's pretty cool, huh?
Actually, can you pause the song just for the audio coming through? And that was also done with your brain?
Yep, it's all brain power up there. So a lot of what we started out with was attempting to move. So I would attempt to move, say, my right hand, left, right. I think it just became intuitive for me to start imagining the cursor moving. Basically, it was like using the force on a cursor, and I could get it to move wherever I wanted. Just stare somewhere in the screen, and it would move where I wanted it to, which was such a wild experience.
It was like using the force on a cursor. Essentially, with the chip amplified his brain activity enough so that electrical devices can perceive that information, which is crazy. I saw a video of him playing like Mario Kart, and he can move the cursor around using only his thoughts. So brain activity data is captured not just when we take action, but also if we think about taking action. The chip simply measures the brain activity and interprets it as an action. There is an even wilder experiment that shows the power of intention. This time with baby chicks as the star of the show, a French researcher named René Pioch, I hope I got this right, a PhD, demonstrated the power of intention with newly hatched baby chicks. I think I found a video of this. Key information: when chicks hatch, they usually imprint on their mother, bonding with her and following her around. And we have a robot in this example instead of the mom. So it's very interesting to see.
In 1986, René Pioch conducted a most astonishing experiment to show telekinesis influencing objects at a distance by the power of the mind. He used newly hatched chicks and a specially made robot. So chickens and birds believe the first animate creature or thing that they see after hatching is their parent, and they become closely bonded. This is called imprinting, and Pioch introduced the newly hatched chicks to this special robot. They loved it and yearned to be close to it. The robot could drive itself around on wheels and had a pen underneath it to trace its path on the paper as it moved. It had a random number generator on the steering, and every few seconds it changed directions. A large table with a low sidewall to prevent the robot from falling off was covered by a sheet of white paper. The robot was placed in the center of the table and set moving. It traced a random pattern across the table. He then put 15 chickens, which were bonded to the robot, in a small cage at one end of the table, put the robot in the center of the table, and switched it on. The chicks felt anxiety when it moved away from them, yearning for it to be close. These chicks had a profound effect on the robot's movement. It moved towards the chickens and stayed at the end of the table closest to them. He put a non-bonded chicken into the cage, and the robot traced a random pattern again. Pioch made the room dark, and then put a small candle on the robot. Even the non-attached chickens could bring it closer for the comfort of the light. However, when Pioch put rabbits in the cage, they were scared of the device and made it stay at the far end of the table. But when they got used to it, they began to draw it near. Pioch repeated this experiment many, many times, always with the same results. So what do we learn? Thoughts have measurable energy. They have an effect at a distance. There is a medium through which thoughts can travel.
Yeah, the medium being the unified field of energy that connects everything, because there is no separation. And this is a crazy experiment when you think about it. If baby chicks can have such a powerful effect at influencing objects at a distance by the power of the mind, just imagine what your thoughts and intentions can do. On the extreme end of the spectrum, there is the example of Nina Kulagina. I found this years ago, and I'm very excited to finally be able to involve it in a project of mine. And she could move objects without touching them, which is called psychokinesis. She could hypnotize people hundreds of miles away, and she could bend magnetic fields with her mind. And to all of the X-Men fans out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds a lot like Professor X's and Magneto's love child.
The same energy fields that enable people like Ingo Swann to leave their body and travel through space are thought to be responsible for causing objects to move. This rare talent for moving objects by force of will alone has been termed psychokinesis, or PK. Ninel Kulagina is a Russian housewife who has this ability. These films of her demonstrating PK were made in a Russian hotel room and smuggled out of the country by American researchers. She gets the object moving with gestures of her hands or by fixating the object with nothing more than her eyes. Kulagina has been studied intensively for more than 10 years by Professor Sergeyev of Leningrad University, who has reported on her work.
With higher frequency emotions that carry higher energy like love, gratitude, and joy, the thoughts and the intent is amplified. The elevated emotion is the magnetic charge you're sending out into the field. Our heart amplifies our thoughts and intentions and broadcasts them through the electromagnetic field with our surroundings. When we combine the electrical charge, or our thoughts and intentions, with the magnetic charge, which is the elevated emotion, we create an electromagnetic signature that is equal to our state of being. That is our presence, our energy, or even what's commonly referred to as our vibe. This is comparable to how electric and magnetic fields interact to form a stronger electromagnetic field. When thoughts and emotions are in alignment, such as focusing the mind on a goal with a strong emotional investment, it creates a powerful effect. Because the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, the more coherence you can achieve through the elevated emotions of the heart, the more the brain and the heart synchronize. This synchronization produces measurable effects not just within the body, but also within the electromagnetic field surrounding the body. The bigger the field we produce around our body, the more we can affect others in a non-local way. We saw an example of the non-local effect on other people in the study with the 4 people at the card table. Emotions that induce stress, or as we've seen, low frequency emotions, cause incoherence, and this actually makes the field weaker. While elevated emotions, high frequency, joy, love, and gratitude contribute to the body's energy field. Let's take a look at an experiment performed at a workshop by Dr. Dispenza. They hired experts who use very sensitive equipment called a gas discharge visualization machine with a specifically designed sensor developed by Konstantin Korotkov, PhD. It measures the ambient electromagnetic field in the workshops to see how the energy of the workshop and participants changes as the workshop progresses. The images on the left demonstrate measurements of subjects' energy before they started the 4-day workshop, and the images on the right show the changes in the 4 days after or a few days after the workshop. And you can see, like, these are 4 examples of random people with the before on the left and after the 4-day workshop on the right. And you can see in each instance that the field that was like pictured or by measured was significantly stronger than before the workshop. And during the workshop, what they did is, we said they practiced 10 minutes of elevated emotion 3 times a day, I believe. And the differences are drastic. I mean, just take a look at the bottom left one. Like the before, you can't even see almost the electromagnetic field, and on the right, it's expanding like crazy. Now, to conclude, everything points to the fact that we're bound by an invisible field of light and information that influences us and those around us. Not only are we bound by light, but on a deeper level, light is what we are. All frequencies that we know of exist somewhere on the spectrum of light. This means that everything, including ourselves, is made out of light and emits light and information. When we look around ourselves, even if it all seems like it's physical reality and matter, objects, things, people, and places, there's also a sea of infinite invisible frequencies carrying encoded information. You're a conscious being of light. Your body is made of organized light and is surrounded by a field of light. The field of light around your body is packed with information about you. Every cell in your body is expressing and contributing information to the field of light. This field continuously sends and receives various frequencies, information, which is essentially light, just like a radio or a cell phone. If light is confusing to you, I mean, in this example, the electromagnetic field is basically light, because light is the entire spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies. And that also means that our body itself is light, but just the most condensed version of light. Resonance plays a huge role in our lives, in everything from tuning our radios to our favorite station to the unforgettable feeling that we have when another human being looks directly into our eyes and says, "I love you." In its simplest form, resonance is an exchange of energy between two things. It's a two-way experience, allowing each something to come into balance with the other. The energy signatures that pass through our bodies travel as invisible waves that resemble ripples on a pond. If you drop a pebble into a pond, the energy carried in the falling pebble is transmitted to the water. The ripples generated by the pebble are actually energy waves passing through the water. If more than one pebble is thrown into the water at the same time, the spreading ripples can interfere with each other. That interference can be either constructive, energy amplifying, or destructive, energy deflating. Constructive, you can just picture like two waves coming together and forming an even bigger waves. Like the energy of both waves is amplified and it builds something greater than themselves separately. An example of this is when a vocalist maintains a note that is harmonically resonant with the atoms of a crystal goblet. The goblet's atoms absorb the sound waves. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Through the mechanics of constructive interference, the added energy of resonant sound causes the goblet's atoms to vibrate faster. Eventually, the atoms absorb so much energy that they vibrate fast enough to break free from the bonds that hold them together. When that happens, the goblet actually explodes, and I have a beautiful and a very funny example of this.
My name's Chase, and I live in California, and I'm gonna...
I think that's a parrot.
Try to break this wine glass by only my voice. Mom, look. It will never. Mom, I broke it!
You did not.
Look it! I did! I broke a glass! I broke a glass, peoples! Woo! Buddy!
No.
Look it! I broke
Stop,
the
stop,
glass!
stop.
I broke the glass with my voice! Isn't that just crazy? Woo! Look it!
Yeah, that is crazy. The last thing that was said before the goblet broke was, "You're never gonna do this." Maybe it's a special goblet or something. Like in my mind, I always had the picture of like a very skilled vocalist. So it's kind of weird that a child can do this, but maybe they can. Maybe it's something that I will try after the recording. Now, the glass breaking is not the only example. We also have doctors that use the same principles to treat kidney stones, and that's a case where quantum physics have been harnessed as a tool in modern medicine. Basically, how it works is kidney stones they vibrate at a specific frequency. And then doctors can non-invasively focus a harmonic frequency on the kidney stones. Like we said, we have constructive and we have destructive. In this case, they're using destructive interference to cancel the atom's vibrations. What happens then is that the kidney stones are broken down into smaller pieces and they can be urinated out of the body. The science of physics implies that the same harmonic resonance mechanism by which sound waves can destroy a goblet or a kidney stone can influence the functions of our body's chemistry and the chemistry of those around us. When one person is calm, compassionate, or joyful in a state of heart coherence, their stable and positive energy actually helps to regulate and uplift the emotional state of the people around them. State of coherence and elevated emotions amplify the effect you have on others because, as we said, your electromagnetic field is bigger and more coherent, therefore the non-local effect is greater. And just like tuning an instrument, we can tune ourselves to create harmonious resonance with people and spaces around us. This is why being in harmony with those around you can make interactions feel smooth and connected, creating effects that can be felt emotionally, physically, and mentally, sometimes referred to as flow or good vibes or simply chemistry between people. The yin-yang symbol is just there to symbolize harmony. Harmony between day and night, harmony between masculine and feminine. It's all about harmony. On the other hand, if someone is in a state of stress, anger, or anxiety, their erratic field can disrupt the emotional equilibrium of others, creating a feeling of tension or discomfort. I'm sure that you've experienced this, but have you ever been around someone and felt uncomfortable for no obvious reasons? I mean, I have. I spent half of my life being around people and felt uncomfortable for no reason whatsoever. And I'm not saying that this is an example, but it can be an example of negative resonance where the frequencies just don't align. There's a disharmony between two people's energy fields, and our bodies are instinctively picking up on the subtle energetic exchanges. In the same way that two guitars need strings tuned to the same or harmonic frequencies to resonate with each other, people's electromagnetic fields resonate best when their frequencies align. Resonance happens naturally when people share experiences, emotions, intentions, and beliefs, like when people are joyful together, when people are laughing together, when people are enjoying a moment of peace together, or when people focus on a common goal and share a meaningful intention, like in team sports, in prayer groups, or at family gatherings. This creates a collective sense of unity, and this amplifies each other's energy. This is the most extreme example of resonance in humans I could think of. I remember a couple of years ago I read about, this is while I was in my energy healing days. I was fascinated by the subject, and I found an energy healing modality that became popular in the last few decades, and the teacher that's spreading the energy healing modality right now got it from his master. And his master didn't use any words in communicating the energy healing modality with his student. The only thing that the student had to do is to be present near the master, and all information and teaching is transmitted via the field. And this is actually known, like in some yogic traditions, as Shaktipat, and that's where the guru transmits energy or spiritual insight through the field energetically instead of through what I'm doing right now, instead of words and images and videos and all the beautiful stuff. If you thought this is exclusive to humans, I urge you to think again. And this is not so special when we compare it to the animal kingdom, where they use frequencies to communicate and resonance to influence one another's rhythms, movements, and even biological states. We will take a look at a few examples. Please pause if you're interested in this, but elephants use infrasound to communicate, bats use ultrasound, to avoid interference. Bees use vibration, and please, if you haven't Googled this, I couldn't find a suitable video to integrate, but please Google the waggle dance. It involves vibrating at a certain frequencies and angle to indicate the direction and distance of flowers. Basically, one bee is performing this dance, and based on the vibration and the direction that it moves into, it's showing to the rest of the group where flowers and food is. Crazy. And we also have birds in flocks and fish in schools. They're behaving almost like they have a shared field that's guiding it, and they're resonating to each other's movements. And we actually have a video of this, just so you know exactly what I'm referring to. You can see the way they move like one mind. And we also have another example of masters of resonance, and those are dolphins. But before we move on to dolphins, there's also heart coherence in social animals, like, for example, the grooming behaviors or calm physical closeness in mammals like primates and elephants, which leads to the synchronization of heart rhythms. So it's not just humans and pets, it's mammals like primates, like monkeys and elephants as well, and dolphins also, but we'll come to dolphins in a second. And this synchronization of the heart coherence is a subtle form of resonance that reinforces social bonds, reduces stress, and promotes a feeling of safety and connection. And my favorite subject by far of this entire presentation, I think, are dolphins. Dolphins are resonance masters. Their echolocation clicks, synchronized swimming, shared whistles, and even play bring them into powerful harmony with one another, demonstrating how resonance works not just for survival, but also for deep social and emotional bonding. Dolphins are incredibly social animals with complex social structures, and they form strong bonds within their groups. For example, when dolphins swim closely together or engage in social behavior like fin-to-fin swimming or synchronized leaping, they experience heart coherence, a type of emotional resonance. Their heart rates and body rhythms sync up, promoting a sense of connection, safety, and well-being within the group. And I just had to... yeah, this is my favorite part. Just looking at dolphins. Beautiful. And what we're talking about here, like with all the resonance stuff, is the 99.9999% of reality that we can't perceive. And while we're on the subject of the stuff that we can't perceive, there's very interesting work done by Dr. Emoto. He conducted experiments in which he exposed water to different thoughts, words, emotions, and music, and then froze the water to observe the formation of ice crystals. The results showed that water exposed to positive words and emotions formed beautiful ice crystals, while water exposed to negative thoughts, words, and emotions formed distorted blobs with no crystalline structure. His work shows that words, music, and our thoughts and emotions carry a unique frequency that has the power to transform the structure of water into a beautiful and healing crystal or to destroy it entirely. These are some examples of the words and information and emotions that Dr. Emoto was exposing the water to. And to me, this is fascinating. You can see, like, when it comes to music, top left, we have the Mozart Symphony. Then we have Imagine by John Lennon. You can see the beautiful structures. Yeah. I thought we have a rock music example too. We don't have that, but you can see words like love. You can see words like thank you. Words like peace. Or emotion like peace. Emotion like love. We can see wisdom, truth, eternal, angel, and the crystals are amazingly beautiful. And then you can also see the crystals of I will kill you, you make me sick, evil, and you fool. You can see how distorted and basically ugly, for the lack of a better word. And the most fascinating thing on here is they took a bit of water that's objectively in a part of a river that's polluted. I think it's a dam in Japan. And they took they saw what it looked like before prayer, and then monks prayed to it, and then they captured this beautiful crystalline structure, and you can see how crazy the difference is, and you can see the effect that prayer has on water before and after it is done. Crazy. If you think this all sounds like science fiction, you can do the same thing with the rice experiment. You just need some glass jars, and you put some cooked rice in it and some water in it. You can write positive and negative information on the labels. For example, positive, it says I love you. The negative says I hate you. And you can apply the labels to the jars and put them away somewhere secluded. And to make it more extreme, you can get your own hands dirty and approach the jars and talk to them. Like express your love for the first one and unleash your worst, like your absolute I hate you, like everything that you need to project and to get out of your body. Like do it on the second jar and then put them in different corners of the room. And honestly, I kind of tried doing this experiment, but I couldn't bring myself to project hate on an innocent jar of rice. So I quickly abandoned the experiment, but you can search online and you can see that a lot of people have similar results to these. Like with the love, emotions, and words and information, like it's the rice stays healthy and vibrant for a long time. And with ignoration or with negative emotions, how do you say it? It develops mold much faster than the positive emotions one. It becomes black. And if the rice experiment also sounds crazy, then we can take a look at the work of Veda Austin. And this is a lady who likes to place a shallow petri dish of spring water over a photo or a note for a few seconds before freezing it and then looking for similarities in the ice. And she performed so many like experiments. It's crazy. She has a Facebook page, and I found all of this on her Facebook page. I think you can do the same. Water Lady Vida Austin or something similar to that. And take a look at how crazy this is. Like water is exposed to the image or the word, whatever it is, for a few seconds, and then it's frozen, and this is what comes out. Like just going from the beginning and seeing like the picture of the lady, and then like the ice having like a perfect reflection of that, or like take a look at the finger in the water, or the flower, the crystalline structure the ice create out of the flower, even the triangle, even the crazy demon thing, the swan, the lungs are absolutely incredible. The quarter, the cross, you can clearly see the cross. The sunflower one, that's not a sun, but the flower one is a beautiful one as well. And the bird is probably the most beautiful one. It's an absolutely stunning interpretation of the bird flying in the sky. Some more examples, like just with the word milk, like not with an image of a breast or anything, just the word milk created the ice structure on the left, like mother's milk. Crazy. And the heart as well. She did the same with music. You can see how the water responded to the different songs. We have Changes by Tupac, which I don't really get, but it gets beautiful, and I guess it could reflect a change. Smoke on the Water, amazing. Crocodile Rock, we can see a literal crocodile in the ice structure. The first time I saw your face, you can evidently see the face, and the best one is definitely Don't Worry, Be Happy. The smiley face is crazy. And this is an example of one of her videos from the Facebook page. A few seconds, freezer, cross, and chain. And this is another argument that water is conscious and that it holds memory. As a result, it's intelligent.
You shall not pass!
As a huge Lord of the Rings fan, I had to integrate this. You could see at the beginning, I think she just exposed like the clip, the segment on a phone next to the water for a few seconds and then put it in the
You shall not pass!
Crazy. This is an example of cymatics, and this is it's not as spectacular in my opinion as
The film you're about to see has no
stuff.
characters.
It just shows how water and even sand, salt, like
If you
behave to
spare a
different
little of your
frequencies.
imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter.
The point of the video is to see how water and other stuff is adjusting itself based on the frequency that it comes into contact with. And what the experiments and results mean for us, it means, yeah, what I just said, water changes its structure depending on the frequencies it comes into contact with. And this also tells us that human consciousness emits a range of frequencies that impact the physical reality. In the case that we've seen, it was the molecular structure of water. But here's the crazy thing. Your body is made up of more than 60% water. In some cases, there's some like estimates that go up to 80, 90% water. And that means that our bodies behave similarly in response to positive and negative frequency, which is why it's very interesting to connect this idea with the environment from the epigenetics section. Like, we were wondering how it's possible for negative emotion to have to be the environment that causes faulty gene expression. It's not so crazy to think about it when you see how, first of all, that we're primarily made of water, and when you see how water behaves in response to different frequencies. It also explains why body's environment and the gene expression is so much more positive and beneficial when we're in elevated states of love, joy, and gratitude, and the corresponding state of heart coherence. So the question that we can ask at this stage is, what would happen if several hundred people in one room in a state of elevated emotion and heart coherence would send the intention for the greatest good of a select group of people gathered in the same room? And they did this experiment with the HeartMath Institute and Dr. Joe Dispenza. They performed numerous experiments where they took a small random sampling of about 50 to 75 people at their workshops. They attached the HRV heart rate variability monitors to their chests and placed them in the front row of the room for 3 exercises over 24 hours. Then, the collective of 550 to 1,500 students broadcast the energy of their elevated emotions beyond their body into the space of the entire room. Next, they had them lay the intentional thought in that frequency for the greatest good of the students sitting in the front of the room, wearing the HRV monitors, that their lives be enriched, their bodies be healed, and mystical experiences find them. The question: could those elevated levels of energy and frequency in the form of love, gratitude, wholeness, and joy cause another person's heart to go into coherence, even if they were on the other side of the room? Results: not only did the broadcast energy produce a coherent effect on the people wearing the HRV monitors, but each of their hearts went into coherence at the exact same time, in the exact same exercise on the exact same day, and this was not a one-time occurrence. They repeatedly found consistent results across the events. The results show that when we get out of our own way and enter a state of elevated emotion, we can become one mind and non-locally connect and influence each other. Question: can a person's state of heart coherence have an effect on communities or even the world? This was actually studied in many peace-gathering projects. Today, the power of peace-gathering projects has been exhibited and thoroughly field-tested in more than 50 demonstration projects and 23 peer-reviewed scientific studies scrutinized by independent scholars around the world. The crazy thing is, the results have consistently demonstrated a positive effect in the immediate reduction of crime, warfare, and terrorism by an average of greater than 70%. 70% is a crazy high number. That means when a group of people come together to change something through the energy and emotions of love, peace, and unity without physically doing anything, that community can produce significant changes in the external reality. We have a couple of examples of that. We have the RAND think tank. It's one of the top 3 peace-gathering studies in the Western Hemisphere. And they assembled a group of nearly 8,000 and sometimes even more trained meditators to focus on world peace and coherence during 3 periods ranging from 8 to 11 days each, from 83 to 85. And the results showed during this time, worldwide terrorism was reduced by 72%. We have another example in India from 1987 to 1990, where 7,000 people gathered to focus on world peace. During that 3-year period, the world witnessed remarkable transformations toward world peace. The Cold War ended, the Berlin Wall came down, the Iran-Iraq war came to an end, South Africa began to move toward abolishing apartheid, and terrorist attacks subsided. What surprised everyone was the swiftness with which these global changes occurred, all in a relatively peaceful manner. Washington, 1993. Approximately 2,500 people gathered in Washington, D.C. in a highly controlled experiment to focus on peace and coherent energy. For the first 5 months of the year, the violent crime had been steadily on the rise, yet soon after the study began, a significant statistical reduction in violence, as measured by FBI, crime and stress in Washington, D.C. began to occur. I think this went on from June 7 to July 30th, so basically short of 2 months. And the results points to the fact that a relatively small group of people united in love and purpose can have a statistically significant effect on a diverse population. I think this is the most well-publicized project, the Lebanon Peace Project, because the principles that we're talking about were implemented during the war between Lebanon and Israel that began in 1982. And the project brought together a group of meditators, people who were trained to feel peace. And now I think I read from a source while reading up on this that they used the TM meditation, transcendental meditation. If that's the case, they used transcendental meditation and elevated emotion, believing peace was already present within them. I'm not sure if it's a TM meditation then, but let's just say they were in a state of elevated emotion, believing peace was already present within them, rather than simply thinking about it or wishing that it occurs. In Jerusalem in August and September of 1983 to demonstrate the radiating influence of peace. They were strategically placed throughout the areas of conflict in the Israeli-Lebanese area for a period of time. The results of the 2-month study showed that on days when there was a high participation of meditators, a 76% reduction of war deaths occurred. Other effects included reduced crime and fires, decreased traffic accidents, less terrorism, and increases in economic growth. The results were then replicated in 7 consecutive experiments over a 2-year period during the peak of the Lebanon War. Although the number of meditators fluctuated over time, it was often large enough to achieve the super radiance effect for both Israel and nearby Lebanon. This study confirmed the earlier findings. When a small percentage of the population achieved peace within themselves, it was reflected in the world around them. Keyword reflected. The experiments took into account the days of the week, holidays, and even the lunar cycles. And the data was so consistent that the researchers were able to identify how many people are needed to share the experience of peace before it's mirrored or reflected in the world. And that number is the square root of 1% of the population. This formula produces figures that are smaller than what we might expect. For example, in a city of 1 million people, the number of people necessary to achieve peace within in order to get the change started is about 100 people. In the world of 8 billion people, it's just under 9,000 people. And this calculation represents only the minimum needed to begin the process, and the more people are involved in feeling peace, the faster the effect is created. This study became known as the International Peace Project in the Middle East, and the results were eventually published in the Journal of Conflict Resolution in 1988. Here's a fun idea, based on everything that we hear, that we learned, we can see how powerful our emotions are, and our internal state is. So why don't we put it into practice? See if you have the power to create peace in your family for one day. So for just one day, from the beginning of the day until the end of the day, practice feeling love and peace. Don't get upset about little things. Instead, just practice feeling love and peace regardless of the circumstances. After that day or during the day, you can reflect on it and ask yourself these questions. How difficult is it? Does your feeling of love and peace affect those around you? Is there a difference in your behavior? And can you tell the difference in how people around you behave? Also, all of these peacekeeping studies reminded me of a section that I read in the Old Testament in Genesis 18. Then Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all earth do right?" Just to give you a bit of context, this is Abraham essentially speaking with God about the city of Sodom, which was widely regarded as reaching a critical point, critical mass of sinfulness and destiny of having to be destroyed because the sinfulness can't go on, to put it in simple terms. And the Lord responded, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abraham spoke again, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people?" "If I find 45 there," he said, "I will not destroy it." Once again, Abraham spoke to him, "What if only 40 are found there? For the sake of 40, I will not do it." Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there?" He answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." Abraham said, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there?" The Lord responds, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." And then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." Yeah, it kind of reminds me with the square root of the population and the amount of people necessary to kickstart the process of peace within, mirroring and reflecting in the external world. Beautiful example. Reflection. If people that feel peace and elevated emotion can drastically influence the unfolding of conflicts and wars in a positive way, does this mean that we can actually connect our individual lack of peace with the creation and development of global conflicts? When you look at it logically, I think, like, based on everything that we have seen over the course of this presentation up until this moment, is that it's definitely connected. And this is what the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said about this. Sorry for butchering the name. All occurrences of violence, negativity, conflict, crisis, or problems in any society are the expression of stress and tension in the collective consciousness. Whew, this is like so beautifully formulated, and there's not a single thing that feels superfluous. This is like a perfect sentence, and it really hits the nail on the head. And this is like something that I just drew as a simple example of, like, if we imagine an individual consciousness is like a circle, like the field that we have around the person. You can see what happens when you put many circles next to each other and over each other. You can imagine those are like many individual consciousnesses or many peoples at one place. And that's essentially what builds the collective consciousness. Like all of us have like our individual consciousness, but we're all connected in a collective consciousness. And if you see the image of the collective consciousness, it undeniably reminds me or us of the flower of life. And the flower of life, even though the origins are not entirely clear, but it has been found in ancient sites across different cultures, including Egypt, India, China, and Greece. In Egypt, the symbol has been discovered at the temple of Osiris in Abydos, etched into granite and believed to date back thousands of years, possibly as far as back as 6,000 years ago. Some link it to sacred geometry and the idea of universal patterns of creation. So it's one of the oldest symbols known in mankind. I think, I believe I can put it that way, yeah. Here's a beautiful individual. We have the electromagnetic field around him. We have the same thing with many people when we switch from the individual consciousness into like collective consciousness, and then bam, we have the field, the unified energy field that envelops them, that influences them, their behavior, their thoughts, their feelings, and that's also how they influence each other, non-locally, even when they're separated. Okay, this all sounds like pretty, like, first of all, incredibly beautiful to me, but it can also sound a bit like science fiction-y to like skeptics. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is it possible to find evidence for this field and for all of these observations in quantum physics? I believe we can. We have the Bell experiments, and these experiments explore the nature of quantum entanglement, which is a phenomenon where two particles become linked in such a way that the state of one particle directly affects the state of the other, even when they're separated. I'm just gonna say up front, I think I have like maybe 10 slides for quantum physics. It's not super complicated. Like if this is really not your thing, like you can go into it completely relaxed. It's not gonna make like a huge difference, but I think it's beneficial to like understand that there's a significant scientific basis of everything that we're speaking about in the quantum physics. Now, imagine you have two tiny pieces of matter. These particles are entangled, which means they're linked in such a deep way that what happens to one affects the other, even if they're on the separate or on opposing sides of the universe. In the study, scientists entangled two photons, causing them to bond together. And photons play a crucial role in quantum mechanics, particle physics, and the transmission of energy across the universe. A photon is a fundamental particle of light, and we said already that everything is basically on the spectrum of light, because all electromagnetic frequency belongs to the light spectrum. So photon is the smallest unit of the electromagnetic field, and photons are responsible for the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And the energy of a photon is directly proportional to its frequency. Photons with higher frequencies like gamma rays and X-rays have higher energy, while photons with lower frequencies like radio waves have lower energy. This is not so important, but what is? So to entangle the photons, scientists use a laser beam of high frequency light, such as ultraviolet, directed onto a special crystal or something similar. And I did my best to actually show what happened. When the high energy photons from the laser hit the crystal, they interact with the material and split into two lower energy photons. And these newly created photons are an entangled photon pair. They're deeply connected to each other. The reason why they're connected because they come from one source. They just got split by circumstance and by this crystal. And now these photons are sent in opposite directions toward two separate detectors. And the detectors are set up to measure certain properties of the photons, such as their polarization or the direction of their oscillations. For example, if a scientist measured the first photon's polarization as vertical, the entangled partner photon instantly shows the opposite polarization, for example, horizontal, even though there was no physical way for the photons to communicate at that moment. That means, as they're entangled, their states are perfectly coordinated, even when separated. The act of measuring one particle state instantaneously influences the state of the other, even if they're far apart. And this correlation occurs simultaneously and appears to happen faster than the speed of light, suggesting an instantaneous connection. Now, this is something that defies classical physics and the idea that particles behave independently as isolated entities, and instead it points to an entangled, interdependent nature of the quantum. Einstein referred to it as spooky action at a distance, and it suggests that quantum entanglement operates outside the conventional limits of space and time. Recently, an image of quantum entanglement of two photons appeared for the first time. I think this image is from 2023, but it's possible that I'm mistaken. And this is how it looks like. This is an image of two entangled photons, and my question to you is, does it remind you of anything? When I saw the picture, I was basically speechless, because as if you're familiar with it, it's incredibly similar to the yin-yang symbol, and the yin-yang philosophy says that the universe is composed of competing and complementary forces of dark and light, sun and moon, active and passive, male and female, and the philosophy dates back almost 3,000 years, and it's just accidentally one-to-one representation of two photons being entangled together. Crazy in my mind, and it's also interesting to think if you can apply it to human terms, like what is entanglement in our terms. In this example, we have like a laser split like through a crystal into two photons, but the concept of entanglement in human terms is much more interesting. To proceed with the quantum physics and to wrap it up, the Bell's experiments showed that quantum mechanics allows for non-local effects that don't align with classical local causality. These findings imply that entangled particles are somehow part of a single interconnected field where distance doesn't prevent them from exhibiting a shared state where interactions are intrinsic. It's the same way that the people in the workshop were able to non-locally influence the people sitting at the front row, or the people at the card table were able to influence the people the one person that was not in the hard coherent state. And it's the same way that people, meditators and the people trained to feel peace within and elevated emotions, are able to impact the world around them non-locally. So in quantum mechanics, non-locality doesn't just apply to space, the instantaneous connection across distances. It may also apply to time. I found some experiments that they were too complicated for me to understand or to be able to explain it in a way that makes sense. But there are experiments that suggest that entanglement can occur across time as well as space, which implies connections between particles that may transcend our usual experience of past, present, and future. This concept is called temporal entanglement, and space and time entanglement suggests that particles or systems may be connected within a single unified field where space and time as we experience it does not apply. Since each particle state in the Bell experiment wasn't fixed until it was measured, the act of measurement itself plays a role in collapsing the particle state from a range of possible outcomes into a definitive one. What this means is the photons that they split together, they didn't really have a specific state until it was measured. Before it was measured, it existed in a state of potential, in a state of wave. And as soon as it was measured by the detector, that's when the potential collapsed into like a specific state or into a definitive one. And this is also where the observer effect comes in. And this is one of the most important principles in quantum physics.
When a laser emits...
But before we go into that, we will take a look at another experiment that also showcases the observer effect. And it's called the double slit experiment. And we have the video that will start straight away to explain the way that the double slit experiment was conducted.
When a laser emits beams of light particles called photons at a screen with two slits, you'd expect to see two strips to correspond with the two slits. Instead, we see a pattern of light and dark bands. This suggests that light behaves like waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with each other to create the pattern on the second screen. However, when scientists used a measuring device to observe the slit that each photon passed through, the interference pattern disappeared, and two strips appeared. The act of observing which slit it went through changed the behavior of the photons. No one knows why observing a particle causes its behavior to change.
Yeah, it basically it's another way of showing the same thing. Light exists as like in two forms simultaneously. One form is, let me just see. Yeah, one form is exactly wave particle duality is what I was looking for. It means that they can behave both as particles or as matter and as waves or as potential. And it's the act of observation that affects how the particles behave. When it's not observed, it's like in a state of potential and wave. And the act of observation is actually what collapses it into a definite state, which makes the particles act as if they're solid going through one slit or the other. And when the particles are unobserved, they exist in what is called a superposition, and they're behaving as if they're waves that go through the slits. Superposition means they can be in multiple states at the same time. And the measurement problem is one of the deepest mysteries in quantum mechanics. The results suggest that reality at the quantum level is not a fixed, predetermined state, but rather a field of possibilities, where the act of observation brings into specific form. This also aligns with the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, where particles exist in superposition, or in other words, it exists in all possible states until observation forces them into a specific outcome. Now, these insights point to a reality where our consciousness is intertwined with the fabric of existence itself. If you apply it to our existence, and if we are the observer of our life, of our reality, that would mean that our participation in reality is what makes the potential of our lives collapse into a definitive physical state. That essentially means that the universe at the quantum level is participatory, and that the universe responds to the consciousness of the observer. But we will go into a lot more detail of these concepts later on. There is a fascinating experiment that involves quantum tunneling of water molecules, and it has shown that even water molecules, which are significantly bigger than just photons, that even water molecules can exist in the state of superposition or in multiple places at once. Also, this is very interesting because as you're already aware, human beings and pretty much everything in existence is made out of water. So the key takeaways: photons can express themselves as particle and wave simultaneously, or as matter and energy simultaneously. Not just photons, but as you've seen, even water can behave in such a way. Particles can non-locally affect each other through entanglement throughout space and time. And matter doesn't have a definite state until it's observed. It exists in all possible states simultaneously, and it's the act of observing which makes it collapse into matter, and the observation plays a key role. All studies and experiments and quantum physics, everything points to the existence of a single unified quantum field that encompasses all points in time and space, and through which reality as we know it expresses itself. The next chapter is about the single unified quantum field.